Hey everyone, it's James from Car Call Reviews, and I'm going to be reviewing my Austin Metro 1.3 Clubman L. Check it out. So this is the Austin Metro Clubman 1.3L, which came out in 1989. These cars were first introduced in 1980 by Austin Rover and were known to be the car to beat the world. They came out as a 3-door in 1980 before they introduced the 5-door version in 1984-85. These cars also came with metric wheels, and then later on they decided to change that. And the earlier Mark 1s had a earlier grille with the headlights dipping in and a different hood, as it was cut out differently. They also came out in a different variety of colours, very chocolatey brown in the interior. The exterior was more red or blue, and different type of colours that they would have introduced at the time. So, but a very popular car these were. They were everywhere, all across the UK. You couldn't ever miss one if you had the chance to. So this has the AA badge on it. And also shows the Metro badge from when they were changing to Rover in 1987. It is the Mark II of the Metro, and this came out in 1989, which was one of the last ever made, before they introduced it to the K series Mark III Metro, and then afterwards you had the Rover 100s. Which was then scrapped in 1997 when the NCAP result of the car wasn't up to standard. So they decided to get rid of the Metro, and that was the end of it. So it pretty much killed them off. So let's see how this drives. Be good to take it out for a test run and see how it responds. Check it out. So let's check out the Austin Metro and see how she runs. So I'm going to get ready now, get it into gear. Obviously I need to put the keys in, it would help. Alright, ignition's on. So let's get it started. Just gonna move that a bit as well. Yeah, so let's get it running. Obviously there's no power steering on this. It's very basic, it's very to turn the wheel, and also you can't turn it, so you can't adjust it in any way. It's fixed, so there's no way of obviously doing that. I mean, a story about one of these would be why I bought one is because my granddad back in 1995 had an Austin Metro, and it's quite a personal story for me, because obviously it was in the garage for some time, and I thought, you know, it'd be nice to do something on a video about one. That obviously that car went in 2007 because we needed the room. Obviously it wasn't very nice to have that, but you know, it was just something personal to me, so I thought I'd buy one, and I wanted to get the feel of them, because I always had this feeling of knowing what they were like, and yeah, so it's good to have one. Right, pulling that out of gear. A bit bumpy down here, mind. I try not to get any mud on the back of the arches, because that's what can cause a lot of rust. You have to wipe it down after. So obviously British Leyland had made these cars in 1980, and there was a bit of a story that Austin Metro, the Austin Rover, sorry, would have gone into bankruptcy. So they decided to create a car which was pretty much a way of getting them out of the predicament they were in. So obviously they came up with the prototype version, which was hang on, just do this. One. So obviously they're in the predicament they were in, and they decided to create this design for the Austin Metro. It wasn't a very good look at first, because they obviously didn't like its boxy shape, so they came up with another different concept, which was this design, and they went with this, and ever since then it became a popular car. You used to see these everywhere in the 90s, the 80s. You know, they were pretty much a common car based in the UK, really. So you know, they were a popular car. Well, obviously around the 90s they had the Mark III, and that had come out. Let me just turn here. So they obviously come out around then with the Mark III, the K series. They decided to change it, and then that was it, really. And then obviously when the Rover 100 came out, Rover weren't doing particularly that well. They started to buy cheaper resources from abroad. They were starting to then, the materials weren't very good, and then obviously with the crash test in 1997, as I just said, that was pretty much the downfall of the Metro car. It started to then decline. The end cap then obviously ruined it, and they took it off the production line. So then really, as from then they came out with the last of the range of the Rover 100s, and then that was it then. But they kept the minis going. They kept the minis going for up until 2000, and then they had the last mini, which had the A series engine in it, and that was it, really. So, and then obviously that was signed for. But it's still a popular car now. I mean, as rare as they are, they're very popular still. not like I mean, they're not as fast as, say, the modern cars of today, obviously, but there's something about them. There's a lot of character, there's a lot of spirit to them, that you could just go in it and you can feel, it feels very, you know, like a go-kart sort of thing, like how so many would be. But they are quite a phenomenal little car, really, to drive. They were mainly used for elderly people. A lot of elderly people used to use them to get out and about into the shops. You know, that was the whole point of the Metro, really, was for the elderly. But hang on. It is very busy around here. You're a learner. That was stupid. Do get some careless people driving, I must say. It's nice to get people as well when they look at something like this. They get the gratification. They would have had memories of something like this. It brings it back to them when they were younger. You know, it gives them some sort of sense of you know, enlightenment of what they had back then. Maybe the dad have had one, or the mum would have had one, or something like that, or the granddad, like my granddad when he had one. You know, it's just memories for them, really. With these cars as well, you did have two different models. You had the 1300cc, which is this one, and you had the one which is the 1.0, which is the 885, I should imagine, cc. So you had two different types, but some that obviously came from the basic spec up to the Vanderpla, which obviously had all the trimmings. You had the wooden dash. Parts of it was had little bits of luxury wooden parts to it, really. So, you know, that's how they were then. Yours here, little, you know, the bolts and stuff like that, you know. You know, like little noises. You do hear a lot of wind noise from these as well than you would in a modern car. It's good to get pleasure from things like this stuff, especially on weekends or something like that. You just nip out and about in it. You know, they are something to drive with. You know, I can honestly say that, you know, with any classic car, it's quite enjoyable. It's an enjoyable ride. It's nice to do something with, really. Just take pleasure. You cannot, I mean, majority of the time you have to make sure that they are topped up. You know, you top them up, you make sure you look after them. This obviously needs some work on, so I mean, I need to do a lot of, it's going to be maybe at some point in the year I'm going to do some filming where you'll see like where the parts it needs doing, and it does need a bit of a restoration process, to be honest, needless to say. But because there are some rust parts, it's starting to form on it now, so I mean, it has had wing replaced on it as well. What's that car? Kidsy. So yeah, so obviously, as I was saying, it does need some cosmetic work on it, where rust is forming and stuff. It has had a wing done on it, which was about 2 years ago. So he has had some other bits of new display. So where the other one bloody burst when I went to BMC, so obviously I had to replace that. But other than that, I mean, it's a sound little car. You know, it's a good car. I think I'm going to turn it out. Done enough filming. This is the dashboard of the Metro. Obviously, this is how the Mark IIs would have looked. This has a the red colours instead of the yellow, because the yellow was the 1 litre. This is the 13. This is the 1.3. So this would have had different, but some of the models would have had the clusters indented there, so they would have had more of a style to them. Some would have had different gauges on here. I think the Mark 1s had a different gauge there. It's a different layout, so to speak, but that's what it would have looked like. I mean, this is done the mileage nearly 58,000, so that's what they would have done for that. And then so yeah, obviously you got the classic Austin Rover buttons on here. So obviously one for the washer, wiper for the front. That was to connect to the rear window, and that's the headlights. So obviously the little buttons were just basic, really basic buttons they would have had. And obviously you got the typical cluster, the typical sticks here for the indicator. The indicator stalk's different. Typical Austin Rover you would have found in the Maestro as well, the Montego, and obviously a 3-speed heater. So if you turn it on, blows out full heat. So that turns it off. That just keeps it on midway with the fan usually. But this is a 30-year-old, over 30-year-old car, so obviously some components usually don't work in cars over that age. You need to replace them. Luckily for this one, it does work. So some of the buttons wouldn't work. Obviously in this one it doesn't have the BL radio. It just has a just the normal CD changer. This was upgraded. The wiring was upgraded with this version. Usually they would have had just the radio, but this is upgraded to a more so you could change the CD and that sort of thing, really. Obviously it has a typical cigarette lighter, as you would have, the cigarette tray as well, and it has the choke, the choke. So when you start the car from cold, you pull that up, and then that would keep the car, it'll rev the car for a few minutes, and then you'd have to then wait for the car to warm up. That's how it would have been with that. So guys, I hope you like that video. Go and like my channel and subscribe to the link just down there. Hope to see you again soon for the next video. Take care.